Hello again. So many things to reflect on this time. There's a poem called Wreck by Adrienne Rich, and it was studied in a class I didn't actually go to, but I heard about, and I read the poetry that was inspired by it. And one of the poems really inspired me to write something. And when I spoke to the person who ran the class about it, she said, "Oh, you know that poem was inspired by this poem, Wreck by Adrienne Rich. I'll send it to you." So anyway, today I read it just before because the second poem that I was inspired by, Wreck, the introduction to the anthology in which it was published said, and we explored our own wrecks. So the idea of going down into your past, things that have happened, all kinds of things, your own subconscious. So that's very appealing to me. It's been a big theme of mine for a long time. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I was beginning to have a lot of lucid dreams. I think I mentioned this before, and I've been talking a lot about that to people recently. And then being scared to go there and scared that if something really frightening happens and so on. And it seemed to be a sort of ongoing theme that my friend said on the night of the last full moon, said to me, "Oh, so you feel like you could do anything, but you're afraid of what might happen." And she said, "Something to ponder." And then this full moon, then about a week ago or so, she mentioned that she had drunk an awful lot of mugwort tea. Obviously, don't take any of my advice, do your own research. And she'd drunk a lot of it for another reason, but that it had given her these really vivid lucid dreams. So I looked in my box and, oh yeah, I've got some of that. So I kind of thought, okay, yeah, why not? My husband was sleeping in another room because he had to get up really early and it was my first lie-in day. Yesterday was a full moon, or it is a full moon now. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Yeah, why not do it? And just go in there unafraid. I'd made myself a bracelet as well, that again had the components to that had probably been sitting around for at least a year. I had this idea of us making magic bracelets in our group, and it was just something that we hadn't got around to. I know I was finishing off some bracelets for an event because it's only the second event I've done, but there's now developed a theme of that we have bracelets for it, and we have themed bunting. So anyway, as I was doing those bracelets, I thought, you know what, I'll just do my bracelet. So I did that, and it's completely mad with all broken long earrings tangled round, and a key, and a tree of life symbol, and a stone with a hole in, and some big chunky beads, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, I went to bed wearing, and it always says the word magic on it. So I went to bed wearing this and had the rest of the mugwort in this little paper bag under my pillow. And I'd steadily from the afternoon but the rest of it, the whole bag, I'd put in this teapot. I don't know if it was too much or not. I don't know. So anyway, I drank one glass in the afternoon. I drank one glass in the evening, and then another glass just before bed. And something like that. Anyway, and then I went to bed and I felt really unafraid. And before I went to bed, I just had this kind of realization. And again, it goes round and round and round because I've had this realization before. That's just what the journey is like, or what life is like when you think about it. And I thought, yeah, what is it that I'm looking for? And is there actually anything else other than this? And the this of which I speak at the moment is kind of a very basic way: tidy your room and sort out your home and make your home nice. Now that has spun from a couple of things. We've been doing this thing of taking, getting all these bricks cleared out. And it was interesting. We had this other friend come and stay. She said, "Oh, this place feels so different." She said, "It's like those bricks were holding something and now you've let it go." And I'm like, "Oh, let's not speak ill of the previous residents. They're lovely. They lived here since 1972. My neighbour's still friends with her sister and so on." She said, "Well, okay, what about the people before that? But anyway, it was interesting that she said that. And since they were taken out, even though we haven't yet got the new carpet, it's on coming in a couple of weeks, we'd put the rug, that we've got a lovely vintage rug someone had given us when we moved in, and that was in the bedroom. So we moved that down, we moved the furniture a bit. So we had this cozy seating area, that we hadn't been able to have it arranged like that because of this brick wall thing in the way, brick cupboard thing. And then we're having the carpet coming, and got the best, well, not the best, but got the thickest underlay, reasonably cheap carpet, but thickest underlay. And yeah, it's going to feel, because as much as floorboards and a rug really looks cool, it is a cold house. So anyway, we've been doing that, and we've been doing it together, and we're doing it separately. And I mean, basically all I've done really is painted some shelves, and they were kind of really dark wood, and I painted them white. And then I put all these vintage ornaments on that I'd kind of got as set dressing for, at some point I'm doing this other thing. I've written this really long performance poem, and some people are going to add music. So I've got these sort of strange ornaments that kind of as a joke, like a swan and some vintage ashtrays, but I put them all on and they look really, really good, and it's made such a difference. And then I started reading this new magical workbook that my husband had bought me, and he'd had it in the 80s, and then he bought it when I was saying, oh, maybe I want to go get a bit more into stuff, and we carefully looked at it, and is it okay, and I just lay down the other night, and while the football was on in the background on the radio, I just picked it up and started reading it. And it basically says, month 1, you make your temple, and it talks as if you've got your own room, but if you haven't got your own room, you make a floor cloth. I actually have got my own room, which is big. However, I have it set up so that I have like a kind of an altar, and it's got all my witchy stuff, and I have a massive desk, and that's my work, and sometimes I sit and write at it as well outside of work. I put a cloth over my work stuff. Then I've got not one but 3 clothes rails open, like I would have had as a student, or not as a student, but as a younger person. And one of them's work, one of them's, and then a couple of them just my stuff. And then I've got some bags ready for the event. I've got some craft stuff. I've got loads of paper making stuff. And I've just got kind of loads of stuff, but it gets a bit out of hand and messy. Now, although it is still messy, I've really cleared it up. And what I did was, instead of, the witch, whatever we want to call it, the meditation, the spiritual area is over here. Well, let's look at it as in the book. The whole room is that. You have something on the wall for north, something on the wall for east. Anyway, I just did a little bit of that. And I got these new paintings, so you might be able to see them. So the one that is the figure of emerging from kind of like a mist or a primordial soup or something, it used to really scare me at first. Anyway, I've put that on the wall that is the west water, and I've got a trunk on that side. It's got some curtains in it, and on the top of that I've put on this kind of resin thing that is looks like a beach, and some tea from Japan, and some shells, and anyway, some things to do with water on that. It's almost like there's a natural altar on that wall. Then on my desk, which faces east, which is the element of air, that already had a picture on. In the book it said, put blue for the sky. I already had a blue picture that my husband had painted for me, which is kind of like waves, strips of water and sea. And on the back he's written in massive letters, my love is in and around you. So I don't like it fixed to the wall in a way that I can't turn it, so it's propped up. I plan to get a bulldog clip so I can kind of clip it round, but I always think of that as protecting me while I'm at work. So that was naturally on that wall. And then there was a broken bookmark, and that was a feather, so it's like air, that's the symbol. So it was kind of already made. And then the other painting that you might be able to see on the other wall is a figure, kind of like an anime, I think, figure. And I asked the artist, what element is that? So I just got that really recently. What element is that? And she said, it's earth. So that's on the earth wall. And at some point I've got another table, which is previously been on the same side of the room as the big table, but that's kind of got achievements and things I'm doing and creative stuff. And I thought, well, that could go on the earth side as well. So Although, yeah, it's still a bit untidy. I've done quite a lot of sorting out. And before I went to bed, I just thought, well, is there anything else other than, just having a nice home and making your home nice and just being happy in it and sorting out stuff that you need to sort out? Is there anything else other than that? Now, I've had this insight before where well, more than once. And I remember one time writing about it, and it was like, okay, so when you decide that there isn't anything else to explore and that it's just your life and what you do, then it can just look from the outside that you're just like everybody else, as in just like people who aren't doing any work or haven't done any work. That sounds judgmental, but I don't know how else to explain it. So it can look, all right, it could look just the same as if you haven't done any work. You're sitting around, and I think my example was sitting around watching Netflix and eating cold baked beans out of a can because you're too tired to cook. But you've done all the work and you're consciously doing it. And so I thought about that for this, that when we were kind of into like traveling and getting rid of everything and living on a boat and traveling around with hardly any possessions, and it was a bit like, well, why would anyone pay, spend £1,000 on a carpet or whatever when you can get a ticket to India? And it's like, yeah, I still do obviously go subscribe to that quite a lot, but at the same time, we're getting older. If we were ill or unwell or we need to sleep downstairs, it needs to be nice and cozy. It's going to keep us warm. So we're going to get a carpet, we're going to get an underlay, and that will be the last one we ever do, I'm sure. Well, I probably. And that stuff is important. And even if everyone else is doing it, and I used to just loathe things like, even now if we go to B&Q, I always say, can I wait in the car? And even if everyone else is, they're going to B&Q and they're doing DIY, and that is just what everyone's doing. And to an extent, if you're doing that, you're doing the same as everyone else. It's like what everyone else is doing isn't all wrong, sitting around a table, eating dinner, cooking food, looking after your home. And I think in the book as well, it was saying that, again, I've thought this before, that everything's a spiritual practice, everything you do. And so looking at cleaning and cooking, and I talked a bit about that last week, and I went and did a big shop at a supermarket, and got all the kind of loyalty cards, so it was cheaper. Ended up at a big Tesco's after work because that's where I kind of meet someone to go on to somewhere, and went and just bought loads of tins of chickpeas and black-eyed beans and cannellini beans and pesto and tinned tomatoes, as well as like baked beans and tinned tomato soup and practical kind of things, pasta and rice. And didn't really spend much money, but got loads of stuff and put it in the cupboard, and it was really good. And then just buy the vegetables locally, and ordered loads of sauce mix, which, for those of you who don't know, before there used to be much available for vegetarians and vegans. It's made by a company called Suma from about 1974. You get it in a packet and it's dried, and you add water and you make it into little sausages, or you can just make it into burgers. And you can add chopped up onions and stuff, or you just have it as it is. And it's really nice. And though it's processed, as in it is dried, it's not highly processed food. It's quite good for you. And that was even before Linda McCartney sausages, and then they were the second thing. No, I don't think they're very nice anymore, but I'll change the recipe. And so anyway, I ordered loads of that. And so, hearth and home. And I wanted to just add a couple of another couple of insights as well. So this morning, Friday, I would normally be going out. I'd be going somewhere quite social. And I just felt in that kind of reflective space of, just be at home, do stuff. And I did these tasks that I've been putting off for so long. So if you have a pension, you need to tell them when you've moved address and stuff. And I just hadn't been taking any of that stuff seriously. And so I hadn't changed my address since we went off traveling, which was 2018. So I tried to do it online, didn't recognize the number. So I'd been putting off for this months, years. Anyway, I phoned them up today, managed to track it down, and then had another because I changed changed jobs loads of times. So I then found another one, and managed to track that one down. There's not very much money in it, but it means that I know how to kind of what I've got to do to change my address, what I've got to do to log on, and I can incorporate it into the other one because they'll accept that. And yeah, just those bitty tasks, you know, which all have loads of components, like, you know, that I've still got to do, like get a utility bill, get the policy number off an email, sign into an app. There's a whole lot, but at least I've done like most of the hard bits. And there's just one small pension from about 2007 that I haven't tracked down, which I've just got to track down, and then I can add it to the other one. So, and then the other one can be on an app and I can have a look at it and maybe even start putting even just a tiny bit of money every month into it. So that is really, really boring, but just felt amazing to do. And then I had a shower and washed my hair and dried my hair. And then I thought, well, I'll do this and then I will go out. I might still not go and be sociable. A bit how I mentioned last time, someone has sent me a text and they want me to do something. And not someone I know well, not really like a friend, but... And I thought, oh yeah, I've overpromised a bit, or oh, I've just got too much to do. I don't really want to do this thing. So it's a bit like that. Do I really want to go out and be all like, oh, hi, and be all sociable to everyone? Or do I just want to be reflective? So I might pop in because I might be somebody who might need some help rehearsing for this event. And that's really important to me to help. I'm also in charge of feeding somebody's cat, which is really nice. So a really friendly cat, even though I don't know it. When I've met the cat once, it was friendlier than my actual cat that I've got home, who I love dearly, but is not the most cuddly. He is lovely. You can cuddle him if he's sitting still, but you can pick him up, and he's mainly motivated by food, having been rescued from being a street cat and came from the cat's home. So he's adorable, but it is nice sometimes to meet a cat that is all fuss. So I'm going to go and fuss this cat, and yeah, and then come back and I guess make another video. But leaning on to, I forgot to say about the insights. So in my family, I suppose there's quite a lot of strangeness. There's a lot of mental health problems on some sides, I guess, or anxiety. And then there's, I suppose there's a bit of estrangement as well. And it kind of struck me. So I had, me and my son aren't really in contact at the moment. And he had written me this email setting out kind of what he wanted in terms of my response. And it was just so baffling to me that I just didn't know how to respond. But at the same time, I had to respond. But I didn't really want to do it that way, or you know how sometimes you're speaking a different language to somebody, and I didn't want to do this, and yet I kind of couldn't do nothing. So I did my best, and then I didn't hear anything. So I got an email back saying, well, your last email didn't land well with me, you need to think again. So I just thought fuck it, I tried really hard to write what he might want to hear without making any kind of mistakes, and that didn't work. So I just thought, you know what, I'll just be all out authentic. So I was just all out authentic, explained myself as best I could, and then never heard anything since. But what it reminded me of was I suddenly realized, I kind of did that to my dad. So my dad and my mum broke up when I was a baby, and things settled after a couple of years, and then I used to see him regularly. And then I last saw him when I was about 18 and pregnant. He'd broken up with his second wife, and he got a girlfriend, and he came with her. And me and my then boyfriend, I was like 18, he was like 29 or something, and we did our best to entertain them. And I think I made this pudding that I'd found from and we did our best. And it was probably quite stressful because I wasn't very good at entertaining. But anyway, I did my best. Anyway, then I never saw him again. And the assumption would be easy to say that, actually, no, that's not true. I saw him at my grandma's funeral when I was about 35, but very briefly. And then he said he would send some stuff from her, and then he didn't. So luckily I took something with me on the day, because otherwise I'd never have had anything, things that she wanted me to have. And anyway, I mean, I don't mean I'd sneaked it. I mean, he packaged it up and gave it to me. But there was a couple of other smaller things. Anyway, the assumption was, oh well, it's because you were pregnant, you were 18, or you weren't. It was nothing like that. He wasn't that sort of person. Like, wasn't like judgmental in that way. And then anyway, then I had the baby, and he's my son. I've only got one child, and he didn't send any flowers or anything. So my mum phones up, leaves a message on his phone, when your daughter, because she said, oh, he doesn't know how to behave sometimes. And she left this email saying, oh, not an email, no such thing as emails then, probably, left a voicemail saying, when your daughter has a baby, you send flowers, blah, blah, blah. So whether or not that then put him off or whatever. And then my grandma had she'd put him on the phone to my son when my son was a toddler or a small child. And then she tried to get me to speak to him. I wouldn't. And I think after about 7 years, he wrote to me and he sent me something that was, I think, to do with my granddad or something. And he said, just asked me just chatted about some general news and then asked me for my news. And I wrote this very huffy letter back, probably because I'd talked it over with my mum and I'm sure she agreed with me as well. But this very huffy letter back, well, I'm not going to get back in touch with you unless you give me an explanation for like the last 7 years. And yeah, then I never heard anything since. And if I had just responded in just a chatty, newsy way, we could have picked up from there. As it was, I asked for some sort of deep explanation and just maybe there wasn't one. Or he didn't know how to give it. Yeah, we'd lost touch, but then there'd been a time to start over again. And yeah, this doesn't bother me, by the way. I don't think it bothers me. My husband's always saying you should get in touch with your dad because otherwise when he dies you're going to feel bad. And I've tried half-heartedly to trace him a couple of times, but more because he suggested it. But it just resonated with like, oh yeah, okay, so I did that to my dad, and then my son did. It's not the same circumstances at all, but yeah, asked somebody to explain something from them wanting an explanation in a certain way and you being unable to give it or unwilling to give it or whatever. Yeah. So a couple of insights. So yeah, drank all the tea, went to bed. No lucid dreaming, no going down into my own wreck, nothing frightening at all. And I just got up this morning and I phoned all the pensions and I did all of that. I did all of that before I even got dressed or anything. And although my room looks more of a mess now because I've got pension stuff everywhere because it's still kind of in progress, but I have got a plan to sort out all stuff and gather things and yeah. And yeah, then I'm gonna now go out and see the cat. And yeah, perhaps, yeah, and then not perhaps, my intention to do another video when I get back to schedule for next week. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.